All right, so tonight we're at a new location. And we're going to continue our study about the mystery religion of Babylon. And just to do a very quick recap, where it started was in Babylon. After the flood, Noah's 3 sons. Ham had a son named Cush, who then had a son named Nimrod, who went to Babylon and built a big tower, as we all know as the Tower of Babel. And then God came and confused the languages, and the people end up taking their religion all over. But part of that religion was, when Nimrod died in that place, his wife, Semiramis, said that he became the sun god, and which at that time they called Baal. And the word Baal in these ancient languages just means Lord. So you'll find this word Baal used a lot in the Old Testament for different gods because it just means Lord. But anyway, then she gets pregnant. What, Baal? B-A-A-L. And then she gets pregnant, and she claims that she got pregnant by a sunbeam from Nimrod, who became the sun god. So her child was divine. And then when she had this child, she named him Tammuz. And this started the whole mother-child worship. So she was the wife of Nimrod, the sun god. So she considered herself to be a deity. And she was the mother of Nimrod reborn as Tammuz. So she was the wife and the mother. So she was worshipped more than the child. So that's where we kind of left off last week. But, I want to give you some more maps. Gloria, can you hand these out? These maps are going to show the Fertile Crescent. Here, Gloria, can you hand these out? Gloria. You're the monitor. Thank you, Gloria.
Oh, I got new ones.
Yeah, we got new maps. But I wanted to show this map also here.
Thank you.
Now, if you're on the YouTube, just take a screenshot of that. And this is the Fertile Crescent. And one thing I wanted to show you about this Fertile Crescent is that you notice it's, of course, in Mesopotamia, and it's fertile because the Euphrates and the Tigris River are there, right? But notice how it goes around and down through the land of Canaan. Now, do you remember that when God promised them the land, he said it would be a land flowing with milk and honey? You know why? Because it was part of the Fertile Crescent. If you go down to where the Red Sea is, and actually in Egypt, here, at the top part of the Nile where that delta is, was the land of Goshen. This is where the Nile spread out into a delta. But my whole point of this is that Joseph put his brothers and all their families in the best land, the most fertile land. And then God promised them this fertile land. So God's taking care of his people. That's kind of my whole point of that. Okay, so the Jewish Roman historian Josephus, in his book, The Antiquities of the Jews, wrote that it was Nimrod who built the Tower of Babel, and that Nimrod was a tyrant who turned all the people away from God. Remember, his name means rebel. And, there's another historian, and that is Herodotus. And Herodotus was a world traveler and a historian of antiquity. For example, witnessed the mystery religion and its rites in numerous countries, and mentions how Babylon was a primeval source from all such systems that idolatry flowed. Now, when I read something from a historian, you may think, well, hey, that's not the Bible. But historians can document things like, how do we know that George Washington even lived? Because there were historians who wrote about it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read something that's not a direct Bible source, it's from a historian, we don't just throw it out because, oh, it's not in the Bible. We have all kinds of history that's not in the Bible, that is still history. Okay, now I want to go back to Tammuz. One of his symbols he was represented as a golden calf.
Oh, wow.
All right?
And Aaron made one of those in the...
That's what I'm getting to.
That's right, yeah.
So when Moses had gone up to the mount and he was going to be gone for 40 days, the people are going, hey, we need a God. This Moses, we don't know what happened to him. So Aaron says, well, give me all of your golden earrings. He wanted only gold.
Mm-hmm.
And then he fashioned this golden calf. And they made an altar to it. And they offered sacrifices to it. And they worshipped it. And they danced around it. And basically, when it says in the Bible that they played, it means they were having an orgy. And this is very typical of this religion. But I always kind of thought that, well, they made the calf because they'd been in Egypt for all those years and they worship a bull. But this is a calf. This isn't a bull. And it's a golden calf. And that is a sign of Tammuz. A lot of this imagery got into Egypt as well. Okay, so when Moses comes down, he breaks the tablets, right? Well, that month of the year that happened, in the Hebrew calendar, their religious calendar, you know what it's called that month? It's called Tammuz.
Wow.
That is the name of that month when that happened.
Oh my goodness.
So that kind of pushes it that that's what they were really making.
Uh-huh.
You have Tammuz and you have Semiramis and you have Nimrod, so they're like the unholy trinity.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
What I want to do now is tell you about all the different forms that this took. So, like I said, the term Baal, this had many, many different gods throughout the Old Testament. He became the god of rain and the god of fertility. And in Rome, we had Fortuna and Jupiter. These are mother-child. We also had Venus, and who's her child? Cupid.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a divine child. In Greece, you have Aphrodite and Adonis.
You're
In
right.
Canaan, you have Ashtaroth or Ashtart, either one, and Molech or Bale. In Egypt, you have Isis and Osiris.
Mm-hmm.
Always a mother pictured with a baby. Sometimes they have beams coming out of the baby. Okay, so there's a whole bunch more. In China, the mother goddess is called Xingmu, the Holy Mother. She's pictured with a child in her arms with rays of glory over her head. The ancient Germans worshipped a virgin Hertha with a child in arms. The Scandinavians called her Disa, who is also pictured with a child.
Mm-hmm.
The Etruscans called her Nutria. And among the Druids, the Virgo Peritura was worshipped as the mother god. In India, she was known as Indrani,
Mm-hmm.
who was also represented with a child in arms. Now you got to remember that when they left Babylon, many other kingdoms existed in Babylon until it was finally destroyed. The Babylon mother was known as Aphrodite to the Greeks, Nana to the Sumerians, and Venus and Fortuna to her devotees in the old days of Rome, and her child was known as Jupiter. Devaki and Krishna are also from India.
Mm-hmm.
And Ishi, the great goddess, and her child Iswara have been worshipped in India, where great temples were erected for their worship. In Asia, The mother is known as Cybele, and the child as Dios. But regardless of her name and place, she is the wife of Baal, the virgin queen of heaven who bore fruit that she never conceived.
Wow.
Magically conceived. So now I want to go back to a verse that I read you when we started out last week. And this is in Revelation 17, because it talks about spreading this all over the world. And I just told you how it was. It says, "Come hither, and I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters."
Mm-hmm.
Sitting on many waters, meaning she's covering the world. "With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with her wine of fornication." It is spread all over the planet, this mother-child worship. And so when the Israelites came into Canaan, oh man, these Phoenician gods and these Canaanite gods, they were all established. And God gave them warnings before they went in there. Do not worship their gods. Okay, now I'm going to read you about some more Baal worship and Ashtaroth, because I want to show you in the Bible how prevalent this is. And this is Judges 2:11 through 13. See if I can find it. "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Balaam." Now, Balaam is the plural form of Baal. "And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods. And the gods of the people were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth." Remember I said Ashtaroth was the queen of heaven? In this scenario, Baal, which means Lord, was her son. So they totally forsook God and were worshiping them. Okay, now I'm going to read some more about the Israelites, what is called their fornication. They're whoring around with other gods. This is Jeremiah 32, 34 and 35. "But they set their abominations in the temple, which is called by my name." Now they're taking this stuff into the temple to defile it. "And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom." The valley of Hinnom, we're going to talk about that. "To cause their sons and daughters to pass through the fire unto Molech, which I have commanded them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do such an abomination in Judah." So God told them way back in Leviticus. Listen what he said. This is when he was giving them the law. This is Leviticus 18:21. "And thou shalt not let thy seed pass through the fire to Molech." But he says pass through the fire. I want to tell you a little bit what that is. Moloch was a god of fire and sacrifice. And what he demanded was a victim. He demanded that a life be given to protect them from his wrath, from this God's wrath. So what they would do was they would take a baby. First of all, what they would do was they would take this statue, and it was made of bronze, and they would light it. They'd put a fire under it till it would get red hot. Then they would take their babies and put them in his arms. And the babies would sizzle and fry and scream.
Oh, wow.
This is what they were doing. This is how far off they got.
Oh, my goodness. That's terrible.
It's horrible. And where they did this was in the valley of the sons of Hinnom. The valley of Hinnom. And I'm going to tell you about this valley of Hinnom. First of all, let's read 1 Kings 11:7. I've got so many little things here in my Bible, little markers, it's hard to tell which one's which. Because I'm going to tell you how this kind of started. This is with Solomon. Then did Solomon build up, this is 1 Kings 11:7. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, that's another of their gods, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech. Solomon was involved with Molech.
Oh my goodness.
The abomination of the children of Ammon. So this was part of the problem, where there were so many wicked kings in Israel, and they would lead the people astray. They would lead them. Think about it. Solomon had all of these wives, but none of them were of his own tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So he was marrying all these women who served all these gods, and look what happened to him. He started serving those gods. You know, it's one reason why people should really think twice about who they marry. Don't think, well, I'm going to marry this guy, and he's not a Christian, but he's really nice, and he'll probably get converted. I'll convert him. What happens is they draw you away. Water and oil do not mix. So you always need, whether you're a man looking for a woman or a woman looking for a man, always look for one who loves the Lord and serves the Lord and puts him first. Okay, this is another wicked king leading the children of Israel astray, and this is Manasseh. 2 Chronicles 33, 1-6. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem, but did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, like unto the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again the high places, which his father Hezekiah had broken down, and he reared up altars to Balaam, and made groves, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. You know what the host of heaven is?
Angels.
Not really. It's our heavens. They worship the sun.
Yeah.
They worship the moon, and they worship stars too. They worshipped everything but the guy who created everything.
That's right.
Right? I'm going to skip down to verse 6. And he caused the children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. I'm back to Leviticus 18:21, where he's giving them the law and telling them, don't let your children pass through the fire. And then in verse 24 of chapter 18 of Leviticus, he says, defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. He's saying, I'm bringing you into this land, and you're going to get rid of all these people who are worshiping this way, in this defiled way. And the land is defiled, therefore I do visit the iniquity on it. And the land itself will vomit out her inhabitants. It's talking about Canaan. The Canaanite Phoenician gods just dominated everything. They were a completely pagan people. Even in their temples, they had temple prostitutes. They would have orgies, and this was a common practice with them. And that's why when the children of Israel were in the desert and making this idol to Tammuz, well, let's have an orgy. You know, that's what you do. And then verse 26, ye therefore shall keep my statutes and my commandments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourneth with you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. That the land spew not you out also, when ye defile it. So he's saying, don't you do that, or I'm going to have to get rid of you. And you know what happened eventually? He did. He did. When Babylon came and captured the southern kingdom, now don't you think it's ironic that it was Babylon, the mother of false religion? God let them capture them, who were doing all of that same false worship. He had Babylon capture them, and they were then slaves in Babylon. So I want to talk a little bit about this valley of Hinnom. Let me read Jeremiah 19, 1 through 6. I want to tell you what happened to that valley where they were doing all of this child sacrifice. Thus saith the Lord, go and get a potter's earthen bottle, and take it to the elders of the people, and to the elders of the priests, and go forth unto the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is by the entry of the east gate, and proclaim these words, what I shall say to thee. I'm going to skip to verse 4. Because they have forsaken me, and have estranged this place, and have burned incense in it unto their gods, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, nor the kings of Judah, and have filled this place with the blood of innocents. They have built also high places to Baal, to burn their sons on the fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither it ever came into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that this place shall no more be called Tophet. That was an ancient name for that. Nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. And that's in the New Testament, we discover that that name of that place, which is on the west and southwest portion of the old city, is Gehenna. It's a burning trash dump. And a lot of times, especially in Jewish writings, represents hell. And they throw dead bodies there, they throw everything, but it burns constantly. It's constantly burning. And I'll tell you something. When Christ was crucified, his body would have been thrown there. Right. If it hadn't been for Joseph of Arimathea. And when Joseph of Arimathea claimed him, his body was rescued from being thrown into Gehenna. God cursed that place through Jeremiah.